Hey Rebelscum, welcome back to another retrospective episode. I hope you guys enjoy these. I like doing them. I think they're a little fun, they're a little different. Gives us a look at what came before and what we got now. And as I told you guys last month when we were doing the barge, this month's theme, or the next 2 months, because it's going to be a two-parter, is the plastic sands of Tatooine. So let's think back to how I did the Death Star one. So the rules are going to be, it's going to be a playset or a playset element or some kind of set piece. Has to be plastic, have plastic component to it, and it has to be outdoors because we're talking about the sands of Tatooine. So this is going to exclude Jabba's Palace because that's indoors, and don't worry, I have an entire Jabba's Palace segment plan. We're just going to wait for that new Boba Fett's throne room set to come out. Keep wanting to say Jabba's throne room. And it can't also be the Cantina. Again, that's indoors. So I will have a fill out the Cantina special for you guys to check out as well with that great new vintage collection band. So we'll look at that separately. So we'll just hold off on that one right now. So we're going to start with the 1978 Cantina Adventure set from, this was a Sears exclusive. So yeah, it's cardboard, but wait. You have these little plastic stands. So we're still on theme. I know I'm pushing it right here, but I wanted to fit this one in and it doesn't quite fit in with the Cantina because it's the outside of the Cantina. So it's the sands in front of the Cantina. You can see the box. I don't have the box, but you can see the box here, what it contains. This is a great set. They released this in the Jumbo line too. So it was kind of a condensed version of it, but it was the only sort of cardboard playset they released in the Jumbo line, and it's a great way to display your figures. It has these little plastic bases here at the bottom, and you can see some different tracks from either animals or characters all throughout the base there, and some treads from, looks like a Sandcrawler gone through there. But it has some great little components to build out your world. It has some droids, the entranceway to the Cantina, some creatures, and a sand trooper, which I'm generally not happy that Kenner never got to a sand trooper because I think it would have been awesome to get a jumbo, or I'm sorry, a vintage style sand trooper. We are getting a jumbo sand trooper. I'm jumping the gun. We're not getting one, but we're getting two. I found out at Celebration. They're going to have different color pauldrons. So one will be a general line release, and then there'll be a second one. So look out for that. But we never got that character. This is the only appearance of him is here in this drawing, and it's a sergeant. You see the white pauldron there. This is the only Kenner Sand Trooper is here on this card back. So this retailed, I believe, for $9.99. Now probably a couple $100 if you want to try to get one of these. So not bad because it also came with a bunch of characters. It came with Hammerhead. It came with Walrus Man. It came with Greedo. And it came with Snaggletooth. Some of them came with a red Snaggletooth. Some of them came with that rare blue Snaggletooth. So you didn't really know which one you're going to get unless you opened it. So if you have one that's mint in box, it's kind of a guess whether or not it contains blue Snaggletooth. So you'll never really know, kind of a Schrodinger's cat situation unless you open it. So there's different versions of this depending on which one you got, obviously with the two Snaggletooths. But that was basically it, and I didn't want to bring the characters out because it's more about the playset here. But so it came with a couple to get you started, and of course you could build it out more. But this was great to go sit in front of your Kenner Cantina set. You had the outside area, so throw a dewback in there and just kind of build out that world. So this is a great little set. I think a good way to start this off. But this will be the last cardboard base, I promise. I just wanted to work this one in, and it does have plastic in the base here, so the plastic sands of Tatooine. So why don't we hop forward a year to 1979? We have a whole bunch of sets that came out in that year. So hopping forward now into 1979, and we have this amazing Droid Factory set. This is going to be, and I would imagine, it doesn't really say, but this is an outdoor sort of Droid Factory. This is run by Jawas. They don't really have a lot of places to hang out other than like a cave or something. So I think this would be outdoors, so we're going to count it as outdoors. And it's a plastic base, so we're on the plastic sands of Tatooine. We're on the sands. We'll just include that. So on the box art here, you can see the Jawas building different droids, and you could put together a couple of different droids. The blueprints kind of help you walk through that here. But that I can't give you a 360. This box does not like to stand up. It's very old, but it's a really good condition. And I really like this just because it's showing you the Jawas building out the droids here and the kid having fun with the droid factory. So this was a great classic box, and I just lost a corner to it. But yeah, I mean, this is a fun set that wasn't really captured after this period, although we have the Droid Factory series. This didn't really take any of this back. So it came with a whole bunch of parts for building different droids, and they fit in here like perfectly. Each little space here you can see in the base has a contour cutout for each of the pieces that fit nice and snug into there. Another fun thing about the series is it actually gives you a character that not a lot of people count in the main line, and that's R2-D2 with the third leg. I'll see it right here. So with his little mini retractable leg in the middle, you can actually build that in the original Kenner line. So we didn't see that until the Power of the Force 2 line to have that pop-out leg, because otherwise R2 just came with just the 2 legs. So you could actually make R2-D2 with that third leg. Here's the third leg right now, just goes inside the body. So that's pretty cool to enable you to create a figure that you can't really create in the main line. Fun fact, I was told that there is a Jumbo coming out with that third leg from the Droid Factory set. So you guys will be able to get that character in Jumbo too. So stand by for that. So in addition to a whole host of parts, you get these blueprints for making an assortment of droids. And we have all different kinds of monster droids, as they call it. Or of course, you could build R2. You could build just an assortment of fun droids. So this was a really great set. I imagine if you were a kid back then, this was amazing. Create your own Star Wars droids. Fun fact about this set is the crane. So this is done several times. We have Jabba's Palace, Jabba's Dungeon 1 and Jabba's Dungeon 2. Not only does the base change color, it's beige, I think, in Jabba's Dungeon 2, and it's a gray in Jabba's Dungeon 1. I'm trying to, yep, I have it over here. It's gray. So the base changes color, and between those two, it doesn't change much form. It's the same layout, but this one obviously has all these different cutouts for these parts. So they changed a little bit of the mold on this side. This ramp is still the same, but the crane is different in all 3 playsets, and some people confuse that sometimes. So it's a dark gray for the Jabba's Dungeon 1. In Jabba's Dungeon 2, it's a brown, but it's a completely different shade of brown than this. It's a dark brown. So some people will see this on eBay, and it will feature the Droid Factory crane and not the actual Jabba's Dungeon 2 crane. So Jabba's Dungeon 2 is the rarer of the set that came with some of the last 17 figures. So it has a different color crane to it. It's a dark, like I said, a more mahogany kind of color to it than this one. So it's definitely, if you're trying to make sure you have the right one, this one has the lighter brown. So yeah, the crane just kind of bent here, and it allowed you to pick things up or sort of impale them with this bottom part of the crane and then move it around. So you can pretend like you were in this little junkyard building out your droids. So kind of fun. And then you had these tubes here too that you could cut to whatever length. But this was a pretty cool set. It was unique. It kind of expanded on the world of Star Wars. And it came out just 2 years after the film, the second year of the toy line. The toy line really started in 1978. So this was still way before, only 1 year before Empire. So they were building out the world a little bit, giving you something beyond the movies or just in addition to the scope of the movie. So this was a cool set for many reasons, but that is our Jawa sort of playset. Let's stick in the same year and check out another one of great bases that was reused in multiple sets as well. Okay, so a little housekeeping before I start this one. The Droid Factory set, I didn't mention it, retailed for $11.99 back in the day. You can convert that to what money, today's money. I don't have the, I didn't work through that, but $11.99 back in the day. This set is $9.99 back in 1979. This, of course, is the Land of the Jawas, one of my favorite play sets because it's got so much world building going on, so many different sequences from the film. I don't have the best box for this, but you can see here you have Luke, you have C-3PO and R2-D2, R5-D4, Obi-Wan, a whole bunch of Jawas. So you can do a lot of great scenes. You could do the purchase of the droid scene, you could do the crashing of the escape pod scene, you could do the hunting of the R2 in the canyon scene. So just a lot going on here. And you get a Tusken Raider just to build out a little background, so you could just have a Tatooine display base. So yeah, they have all the different functions here on the side of the panel, showing you different play elements. So this was just a really great set. I love it. I wish my box wasn't as bad, but really great set. And this base, as I was mentioning, was used several times. Of course, the Hoth Ice Planet Hoth set, that also has the same base, including the tread marks on it. Obviously, it doesn't come with the escape pod, but everything else is basically the same in that. And then again, with the Rebel Command Center or Echo Base, same base again. The only thing that's changing is this. Obviously, we're switching that out for an AT-AT or an Echo Base hanger. But this base gets recycled a lot. It's a great base. There's a lot going on with it. Of course, over here you have the component where you could do that attack, where it makes this little tab pop up so the Jawa could simulate shooting the droid. You have this cave over here, a fun little cave. There's peg holes to stand up characters. You have the tread mark here, which is supposed to be the Sandcrawler has gone through it. And this one comes with an escape pod, so you can fit R2-D2 and C-3PO in there. There's a little panel sticker on there, so you have this great escape pod that kind of crash lands there perfectly. And then you have this Sandcrawler element. And the Sandcrawler has this elevator to help you bring your droids up into it. So that works pretty great. The thing I see a lot of people missing when they acquire these online are these little plastic tabs, the shorter one and the longer one here, and that's just the guides for the elevator. So a lot of people don't have those. And also on the inside, there are these little tabs here, and I'll try to take one out so I can show it to you guys. There's these little tabs for characters, so you can fit up to 4 characters. I mean, you can fit more, but there's pegs for characters. So there's these little peg bases, and these sit on the inside. So you could have your characters essentially stand up on the inside of the Sandcrawler. So it kind of, like I showed you in the AT-AT and that Many Battles of Hoth segment, it's basically just there to have you have a place to put your characters, give them some form so they don't fall over. You can't have a pilot on this one. I mean, unless you just want to imagine that the guy who's sitting here is the pilot. But this one is a little different than the AT-AT. There's no window to hang out while you're driving the Sandcrawler down the road. But that's basically it. Nothing going on in the back. It's just kind of open. But you saw on the 360 there that there's just a space to put characters in. But this is pretty cool. I mean, it gives you this huge playset base. A lot of elements here to put your characters on and put them in different scenes. Haven't gotten anything like this since, but it's nice to just kind of have an environment piece for your characters on Tatooine. All this great sand design there. So let's stick one more time in 1979, and I'm going to check out a vehicle with you guys that is also more of a playset than a vehicle. Yes, I know there's no sand base here, but it's plastic. It's called the Sandcrawler, and it's a playset, and that's what we're focusing on here. There are a lot of vehicles that are on Tatooine. You have the land speeder. You're going to have creatures like the dewback that's kind of like a vehicle. You're going to have mini rigs. You're going to have skiffs. Those all, for the most part, hover above the sand and they don't really drive in the sand. Even the land speeder is floating above the sand. I could go on and on with creatures, so I didn't want to focus on creatures. We'll do a whole segment on creatures. We'll do a whole segment on vehicles. But I want to focus on playsets, and this is a playset just as much as it is a vehicle. So, of course, this is the 1979 Sandcrawler. This retailed for $29.99 back in the day. It has this nice, really nice box that I don't have, or at least I couldn't find. So that's a really cool look on that box. So a lot going on with the Sandcrawler. Of course, you have this opening front here, and this is your pilot area. So you got these great stickers in there for your pilot Jawas to sit in. We never got to see this in the film and the inside of this Sandcrawler. There are a couple panels on here. I'm not exactly sure where they are anymore that were on the top. They just were there. So on the one side, you have the elevator, and I'll open the door here so I can show you how it works. And this basically just went up and down and lets you bring your guys up into the Sandcrawler. So a great little function there. So that's a fun little play element to it. And then on this side, you have this door that came down, and you have these little stairs for the guys to walk up into the Sandcrawler. So I'll take this out for a second. So this is the remote, and I actually haven't tried to see if this works. But ideally, once you put the batteries in, you just kind of click this thing and it drives. It has these wheels in the bottom that will move around. But it might work. I don't have any D batteries or whatever it takes here, the larger batteries, to try it out. But you got some stairs in there, different levels on the inside for you to sit your droids, and there's tons of peg holes to put characters in there, and you can sit the droids in there, so you can do the whole C-3PO and R2-D2 captured scene, throw in one of those Death Star droids, R5-D4, and a powered or gonk droid. So you could really build it out with all the characters Kenner had at the time to have that movie scene captured. Oh, and I just found the panels. They're up here. They don't really have any function. I'm not really sure why they're there, but sometimes they separate from the body of the Sandcrawler, and you have to track them down online to try to fill out your Sandcrawler. But they're there. It's weird. So the battery cover is actually this little insert here that kind of moves, and then you could just put the batteries in. So you'll see this mold reused again. When we get to, I believe it was the original trilogy collection, there was a previous exclusive Sandcrawler. I'll do that in part 2. But it's the same mold. And this happened a lot. In the Power of the Force 2 line, you see the Kenner molds carry over. So the X-Wings were the same. I believe the TIE Fighters were the same. The Landspeeder might have been the same. Everything just had the same mold. The Skiff was the same. Everything had the same mold coming over, and this was no different before they changed those after a while. That was the only Sandcrawler produced by Hasbro, I believe. But the other one I'll show you guys is the Disney one, which I think is a lot better. And I'll show you guys that one as well, but they never made this again. I don't know why. This was great. I mean, this, and then it came over into the original trilogy collection. It's the same thing, just without the batteries and the electronic function to it. But it's the same exact mold, and this is a pretty good mold. I mean, I'm happy with the Sandcrawler. I really like it. It looks like a Sandcrawler. It's definitely not to scale. It would have to be like this tall and much wider, probably as wide as this table here to be scale. So I doubt we'll see that. It'd be like the clone tank, essentially. So I doubt we'll see that, but it's still cool to see a larger Sandcrawler just to bring it back. So maybe they'll bring it back in a vintage collection and we get a large Sandcrawler. But that is the Sandcrawler, and that basically takes us to the end of vintage figures. But you know what? I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to call the Power of the Force 2 line vintage. I don't know why we're refusing to do that at this point. We still call it modern. Guys, it was 30 years ago. I think it's like when I started collecting the Power of the Force 2 line in 95, that was only 10 years from when the vintage collection stopped. And we're calling that modern, and that's 30 years ago. So whether or not we want to refer to it as vintage, it's in that time frame. Plus, it was called Power of the Force, just like the Power of the Force Kenner line, and it was Kenner. So I think we could keep this as part of our Kenner segment. And so we'll do a Kenner segment, and then we'll do a more modern Hasbro segment. So let's fast forward to, I believe it's 1997. I might be wrong. And we'll take a look at some of the Power of the Force 2 elements that started incorporating plastic sands. All right, I was wrong. It wasn't 97, it was 96. Can't forget about this guy. This is from the Electronic FX series. He retailed for $9.99 and $9.99. And it was, this great Electronic Power FX series that they tried and only had one wave, and I guess it just didn't sell well. For the Death Star set, I showed you guys Obi-Wan and Darth Vader. You could keep that Darth Vader base, and you could connect him to the Luke Skywalker Death Star 2, and he had the whole spectrum instead of just half of it this time. So then it turned into a Death Star 2 battle. There was an Emperor Palpatine who had that classic window behind him and the lightning effect in the hands. And then there was this guy who kind of beeped and walked around the desert on this metal base. So I'll show you the package here. I picked one of these up just for this segment. It wasn't, I think I only paid $9.99 for it. So you can see here that great window box packaging with the R2, and he's got a very unique sand deco on him. And then you got that base there of a great piece of the planet we really don't see elsewhere. And then on the back, you have that cutout of Beggar's Canyon that you kind of throw on the back to give it that full effect. So let's crack into this guy. So I did buy him for this, but like I said, I don't feel bad because he really wasn't that much money. And the Power of the Force 2 line is not holding up well. People do not like them. It doesn't really have that nostalgia factor that I thought it would. And it's just kind of disappointing that it just fell from grace, essentially. I don't even know if it ever had a position of grace. Although we do love it when they put them in Black Series packaging and bring those back. So that kind of keeps it alive. But Other than that, there's not much nostalgia for the line itself because they're really easy to get and super cheap. So we have him here. He's got a little piece of, I guess, metal stuck to his base. Oh, that's weird. It's some kind of little metal filament, I guess, being stuck in that package for 30 years. Eroded the metal here. So let's see if he works. No guarantees, but I think he... You hear that? Wow, 30 years. These batteries are holding up. So you had to just find the metal. There we go. And then you could kind of move him around. I'll get this out of the way here. You kind of move him around on this base, just using magnets. The power and fun of magnets. So that was a little cool play feature to just be able to move him around while he's looking for Obi-Wan in Beggar's Canyon. And then there was a peg hole on the side so you could stick a character like C-3PO or something if you wanted to. The only other thing you could do is cut out the back here and you stick it in, and then you get this full effect of being in the desert. I don't want to take the time to do that for you guys right now, but you see it in the 360 that I'm overlaying, so you'll see what the full effect looks like. But yeah, this is a pretty fun and cool element. I remember when I was a kid playing with this thing. It was great. It was really great to be able to have this R2, and I wanted kind of a more seamless R2 like that to just use anywhere. So that was fun to have that little element. Yeah, I think you could get A76 batteries, it says. So if you wanted to, you could replace it. But they hold up for 30 years, so it's not bad. So that was this guy. Now we're going to hop forward to 98, and we're going to finish out this half of the plastic sand segment in that year. All right, I lied. There's one more. There's 97. 97, we started getting these cinema scenes, Power of the Force. This one's the purchase of the droids. You can see in the box here, you got these 3 characters he came with. This was the first time we got Uncle Owen. We didn't get another one of him for a while. This is not going to be until part 2 where I'll show you that. I think it was the Saga line or the Legacy line collection that he came back in. And it was the same one, just repainted. So we got Uncle Owen. We got a really unique C-3PO that I still use on display to this day because he's got his restraining bolt on him. And then we have our Luke Skywalker, and this is one of the better Lukes, I think, at the time because it wasn't beefy Luke. It was a more proportionate Luke. Yeah, and then you have that great scene on the back there. So checking out this scene, why did I include it? Well, if you look at the base, it's sand and it's plastic. So it fits into our element. And we did the same thing with the Death Star, showing you guys because it was the Death Star base on it as well. But you got the cinema scene here of the whole purchase of the droids ensemble. I will show you guys that with the modern figures when we do part 2, because I'll show you with the latest Sandcrawler how that looks. It looks pretty awesome. I have that on display like that. And like I said, you got this unique C-3PO. So we still got that vacuum metal look. And you didn't get this in later lines. They switched to the more plastic. But then he's got that restraining bolt on him that was unique to this scene. And he didn't get it removed for a while. So it's hard to find C-3POs. I think there's another one, the one with the removable left arm from that Desert Ambush scene. But this one does not have the removable arm. And this is, I think, perfect for this scene. And I think this is the only way you could get him was in this Purchase of the Droids 3-pack. So, yep, that is our fun little element here. So now we're going to hop to 98. And in 98, we got the complete Galaxy series. And specifically, there's one that I wanted to flag, and that would be the Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker, came with Tatooine. It opened up, and you had a Sarlacc with some sand in the bottom, and him on a skiff hopping off. You can see it right here in the package. And those retailed, I think, around $14.99 for those back in the day. And it wasn't bad. You got a figure, and it was kind of sometimes a unique figure, and you got sort of a play element, display element. It was also, I think, the only time we got that dragon, weird flying creature for the Dagobah one. We never saw that again, so he was in there in that set. So you got that set there, and yeah, that had a little plastic display element and a mini Sarlacc. We didn't get another Sarlacc figure for quite some time, so that was our only Sarlacc at the time. So you had that fun little set. That was 98. I don't think I mentioned it. This was $17.99 when this came out. Not bad for 3 figures. So like $6 essentially for each character, and then you got the base and then the background display. So that is it for the Power of the Force line. I just want to throw these in there. I don't have them, but they're worth mentioning because they're also plastic stands. So we'll keep it on this side of the millennium, and it will be 1999 when the Phantom Menace line came out. We had 2 more cinema scenes. We had the Mos Espa Encounter that came out in 99. You can see here in the package. That featured Anakin, Sebulba, and Jar Jar Binks, and that was 1999. That came with the marketplace scene, and that had a plastic base just like this on it as well. So that's another cinema scene featuring a plastic base. And there was one more, and that was Tatooine Showdown. You can see that box right here as well. That was Darth Maul, Qui-Gon, and Anakin. Again, I want to call him Anakin running, just because he was in that running pose. Usually when you got these showdowns, you kind of got like a unique version of a character. I remember Obi-Wan from the Cantina Showdown 3-pack had that leaning right leg slightly bent, but it was unique to that set. You never got another one like that. They didn't have articulation in those characters. It was 5 POAs basically back then, 5 points of articulation. The knees did not bend. So bent leg Obi-Wan, that was the only way you got him. So yeah, so we got that set, same thing, 1999. And that also had a plastic base for the desert, because that's where Maul was attacking Qui-Gon and Anakin on the way back to the ship. So that one had that background display as well. But I think that is it as far as what our team could come up with on the research for this end. I couldn't think of any other ones. No one else could think of any other ones in terms of set pieces or play sets between 1977 and 1999, including 99. So I think that captures everything for the plastic sands of Tatooine, from the vintage up into the cusp of the modern. And next time we're going to be looking at a ton of playsets and playset vehicles. I've already told you the Sandcrawler, so I spoiled that. So I have a couple more for you guys to check out on that end, and I'll even end it with a great purchase of the Droids display. But that covers us for this time, guys. As always, like, subscribe, and follow Rebelscum. We got plenty more videos, plenty more exciting things to show you. I'm going to have a new segment coming up. I don't want to spoil it, on some new products to show you guys. But yeah, keep tuning back, and until then, stay vigilant, you Rebelscum.